Hello, how are you doing, and welcome back to the channel. So England 31, Italy 14, it ended here at Twickenham to round off the second round of fixtures in the 2023 Six Nations. In this video, I'm going to be getting into it, my general thoughts on the game, and improved performance for England, but they're certainly not where they will want to be eventually quite yet. That's probably the best way to summarise it. And also thoughts on Italy as well. They weren't quite able to back up their narrow defeat to France a week ago. If you are new here, do subscribe to the channel, like the video, but most importantly, as ever, drop a comment down below. What did you make of the performance? What did you make of the game? And what do you make of both of these sides? All right, let's get into it. So to start off, my general kind of thoughts on the game, and what I wrote down here as my first bullet point in terms of overall, England did what they needed to do. And as I'll get into, there were improvements in their performance from defeat to Scotland. It was a relatively comfortable victory in the end. Italy threatened to get back into it, but there wasn't any point for me personally where England were necessarily in too much danger. So England did what they needed to do. They won in the end by a pretty comfortable margin, and they can move on and they can build from this. And there are plenty of things, both in terms of their tactical display and also in terms of personnel, which I think Steve Borthwick and his coaches can take away from this and move forward into their next game following the rest week, which is away to Wales. Big game in Cardiff. So as I say, it was an improved performance, but I don't think quite yet other sides in the Six Nations, even including Wales, even though they've lost 2 games, will be looking at England and feeling all that threatened at the moment. This is a project, I think, that Steve Borthwick and co are building. It's about incremental progress and building on what they did last week, and they were able to do that, as I'll get into in this video. Italy also, I think, just a word on them before I kind of get into the nuts and bolts of England. Italy are an improving side, I think. I think it is disappointing for the championship overall that they weren't quite able to trouble England more, but specifically because of some of their tries they scored, long phases of attack. I think those are the sorts of tries we haven't necessarily seen Italy score on a consistent basis over the years. So I still feel positive about Italy. I hope at some point in this championship they are able to capitalise, get a victory. I think that would be a really good thing for the Six Nations, but it wasn't to be here today at Twickenham. So I want to start off with the positives for England. I think where the headlines are going to be written around the centre partnership. The first time in a long time that England started Owen Farrell at fly half, and they had 2 recognised centres in the centre. Ollie Lawrence at 12, who got man of the match, and Henry Slade outside him at 13. Now, I personally probably wouldn't have given Ollie Lawrence the man of the match, but it doesn't really matter, he won it. And what he did do was give England go forward ball. It was an inside centre who, a lot like Sione Tuipulotu last week, could take crash balls and get England over the gain line, and he did that absolutely brilliantly. I had some question marks over him heading into this game, just in so much as we didn't quite know how he would go at 13, essentially. We've seen him play a lot at 13. Didn't know how he would quite go at 12. We've seen him play a lot at 13 for Bath in the Premiership. How was he going to go at inside centre? And he did really well. And also a guy who has been capped by England before, but then kind of got discarded by Eddie Jones. Did a great job of coming in and making an impact. And I do think now that maybe that will put to bed the kind of Smith-Farrell debate, and England will play with 2 recognised centres moving forwards. I actually think that's probably what Steve Borthwick wanted to do in the first game, but various injuries meant that he couldn't in the end, and he did go for Smith and Farrell. So there we go, that certainly seemed to work. Also the line-out was a lot better for England. It was a far more solid set piece. Last week against Scotland, there were a few overthrows, they were under pressure. Very rarely were England troubled at the set piece this week. In particular, the line out, but I thought the scrum went well as well. They had the ascendancy and dominance in those areas, and Steve Borthwick has spoken about England not being good at anything, and I think a big part of what he is going to try and correct early on in his reign is the set piece and giving England a foundation to be able to build upon. That's the scrum, that's the line out, and also it's the driving maul. Again, we saw England here go to that driving maul, try and get themselves over the game line. They scored a number of tries from it. They got a penalty try as well. So that was a really positive thing for England in terms of that set piece, in terms of the scrum, in terms of the line out, in terms of the driving maul. Elsewhere as well, Jack Willis, excellent at 7. I think if he had stayed on the pitch a little bit longer, he would have ended up being the man of the match. He scored a try, he was a menace at the breakdown, he helped set a try up. I just thought he was absolutely excellent. And listen, I'll hold my hands up, and many of you have pointed out in the comments section of this channel before that maybe I was being a little bit unkind to Jack Willis, saying that I was concerned about his size in that back row and just how you fit him into that back row. And I think he proved me wrong today. He was really physical in the tackles, he was brilliant over the breakdown, which we know what he can do, and he got himself on the score sheet as well. So from Jack Willis's point of view, I think it was just an excellent outing, and let me know what you think, but I think he has put a marker down for that 7 shirt. I know we've got Tom Curry to come back, and whether he comes in, but Ben Earl came off the bench again today, but I thought Jack Willis was absolutely excellent on the open side. Elsewhere as well, in terms of the positives, the attack looked a lot better for England. That helped by Ollie Lawrence, and he was a big part of that because he helped them get over the gain line. He was the crash ball centre that they haven't really had for a long time. I know Manu Tuilagi has been there, but his form hasn't necessarily been as good. So they got themselves over the gain line, and when they were able to put pace on the ball, when they were able to get Italy moving backwards, they looked really threatening. It wasn't perfect by any stretch, but it was certainly better than we have seen, and that's reflected in the 5 tries that England scored. So attack, that's another plus point. And also discipline. I think it was about 7 penalties conceded by England, 14 to Italy. So keeping it under 10 penalties conceded from an English point of view, that's always going to be key for them moving forward. There are some work-ons though, and England, the defence was much better this week. They actually got through a lot of work. The stats on the game, Italy had far more carries, England had to do a lot of defensive work, and for the most part they did a good job of defending that. Still, again, I think there were similarities to when Scotland stretched England touchline to touchline, particularly towards the second half, and as the game got broken up a little bit more, England did still look susceptible in those areas. So defensively, there's definitely still areas to improve on, but when you consider it to last week, where you had Van der Merwe brushing off 5 tacklers on the way to scoring tries, England dropping off tackles quite a lot, I thought it was better this week, but no doubt room for improvement. 2 yellow cards for Italy as well. There are 2 players in the sin bin through the game. England, I think, scored 1 try in that period, particularly the yellow card in the second half. I think England would want to capitalise on that a little bit more, put the game completely to bed during that period, which they maybe weren't quite able to do in a way that they would want to. And then my other thoughts really are selection decisions for Steve Borthwick. What did he do on the wing? Arundell came on and scored a try. It was set up by Mitchell, and I'll get onto him in just a moment. Ollie Hassel-Collins, I would say, has had a relatively quiet couple of games, so maybe that wing position, I think, is something to keep an eye on. I do wonder whether we might see a change there. And then the second one is the position I mentioned there. Mitchell at scrum half looked brilliant, I thought, coming off the bench. He had so much more zip to his game than, say, Ben Youngs last week. And you think about the Arundell try, Ben Youngs is not setting that up, in my opinion, in terms of how he's playing at the moment. So I want to see Mitchell get more of a run in the team. He could even start. I think Van Borthwick has had good moments and bad moments in an England shirt. I wonder whether Mitchell will get a start, but I think he needs to continue to be part of the squad. Those are my kind of pretty much on the whistle thoughts on the game and what we saw here. Let me know in the comments below. As I say, I think England were improved, but they haven't set the world alight. They've done what they've needed to do. As for Italy, I thought they had some great moments, particularly with some of those phase tries they scored. Was it their first try where they went through about 17, 18 phases and were absolutely brilliant? That's the sort of try which I think shows how much they're improving, to be able to sustain the pressure on a defensive line, not make any mistakes themselves, and get themselves a try was absolutely excellent. So those are my kind of general thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do subscribe to the channel as well and like the video. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.